Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Me1 MMA podcast, where I will be recapping UFC 326, aka the BMF Belt, Oliveira versus Holloway Dos, and I will also be giving predictions for UFC Emmett versus Vallejos. That fight card I'm a little bit less excited for. It's not that the fights aren't going to be bad or inferior action, just there's a lack of impact and a lot of kind of setup fights that maybe in the future will be valuable, but probably not, in my opinion, is the problem. But let's dive into UFC 326 first. BMF Belt, Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. Listen, I appreciated Charles Oliveira going out there and having one of the best fights of his career. But on an action BMF scale, it was lacking. And it's not his fault, because the reason I picked Holloway and the reason I was looking forward to the fight was I figured that Holloway would have solutions, the ability to stop takedowns, the ability to establish something on the feet, and the ability to get the fight, going in his way. And landing 26 significant strikes, that's not going to do that. Spending 20 minutes on bottom, that's not going to do that. I think Oliveira put an ample effort to try to finish the fight. 4 official submission attempts, I'd say more, and plenty of ground strikes as well mixed in there. So perfectly great performance by him, just not really living up to the BMF belt. And well, that's frankly why I think that the belt is stupid, because people are complaining about this fight and this fight was fine. This fight was great. This fight was a masterful performance by Oliveira, and people are shitting on him for it, which is insane to me. Absolutely nuts. Oliveira probably should get the next title shot after Topuria and Gaethje do the thing. I understand that there is a lack of appeal to giving Oliveira another title shot because he has lost very definitively to Leo Topuria. He has lost, not very definitively, but somewhat to Arman Tsarukyan. But if we're not going to give Tsarukyan a title shot, he's kind of all you got left. So there you go. Rolling on down this card, I just closed the stats page, which is a shame. Kyle Bahayo beat Reiner de Ritter. Not a great fight. Not a particularly amazing one. I do find it weird. There's a lot of people who are against the 30-27 scorecards for Bahayo. Don't get me wrong. There are rounds you could give Reiner de Ritter in this fight. The second round, I think, is a potential. I think you could even argue the third round has potential, which is weird because Bahayo ended up on top, but did very, very little with it. The first round is somewhat up for grabs. You could even score this fight for de Ritter. But what I'm getting at here is there is literally not a single round in this fight that has to go to de Ritter. Every round here has an argument for Kyle Bahayo to win, and I scored it that way, with the thought that we would get a 29-28. I thought that just judges being judges, there would be a round on each card that would go to de Ritter, but there is no round that has to be. Was this a great performance by Bahayo? Not really. He took the basic things that are required to beat de Ritter and applied them in the most unconvincing way possible. So I'll give him credit for making the read, but my God, that Fighting Nerds gym is, their game planning continues to be, for a nerd gym, just uninspiring. We'll go with that word. And it continues being bad because Raul Rosas Jr. versus Rob Font was kind of ass. 18 total significant strikes. Is it a good win for Rosas? Yeah, sure. It's solid. His takedowns look good. His ability to keep the body lock was on point. The mat returns were there, but there was a complete lack of actual damage done. So, and particularly was really annoying at the end of the fight where he's like, "Yeah, I was going for the knockout." No, you weren't. At no point were you trying to do damage to Rob Font. At no point. This is a win. This is fine. You're young. You can learn from this. You can get better. You can improve. But my God, you have to get better. Please, Lord. Michael Johnson versus Drew Dober. This was actually fun. legitimately fun. There was some weird betting things going on with this one. It looked like I was right with the Michael Johnson pick early on. It looked like he was a little bit too fast, a little bit too put together in terms of the striking. He was landing more, albeit the percentages were not amazing. But he was doing a good job. Won the first round, I thought. Outlanded Dober. Stung him a little bit more, a little more accurate. And then Dober just knocks him out in the second round, does his thing. So, congratulations. That was a heck of a knockout for Drew Dober. He's still got the power. Am I convinced that he is solving anything? Not really. And I knew Michael Johnson could get caught, so I don't know. It's an empty feeling in that regard where, like, I still have the exact same concerns, limitation thoughts, hesitation about picking Dober in the future coming out of it. But he got the W. He is now on a winning streak, and that leaves the door open for some cool fights. So that's good. Gregory Rodriguez, Bruno Vea. Not a lot happened. Once Rodriguez decided to hit Vea, he knocked him out. So that righted a wrong of the past. Cody Garbrandt versus Zhao Long. Oh God, Zhao Long legitimately should have won this fight, because I don't even know what round you give Garbrandt. I really don't. He got outlanded 20-10 in the first round, 22-7 in the second round, 28-11 in the third round. And he easily would have won and Zhao Long would have easily won if he didn't kick him in the balls twice, 3 times, 4 times? I don't even remember now. But got 2 points taken away for low blows. Not being able to watch his target with the shots below the belt, but like I still think he won. I legitimately don't even know what round I'm supposed to give Garbrandt in this fight. I'm puzzled. People weren't complaining about it, and I get why. I understand. I get it. You watch a guy kick a guy in the balls numerous times and you know, lose as a result. There is something cathartic about that. There is something cool about that. But I don't think Garbrandt in any way deserved to win this fight. I don't think there's a round that he won. He was 2 gun shy. And it's so disheartening, because it's not like Garbrandt is like Dober, whose run has kind of been hampered by just getting old. Like, Dober's problem is he's not as durable as he used to be. He's not as fast as he used to be. And I'm talking about Dober as if I didn't just talk about him beating Michael Johnson. But, like, you know, the Drew Dober that existed in his prime would have just absolutely steamrolled Kyle Prepolek by physicality. Garbrandt had every physical tool to take this over against Zhao Long, and it showed after the point deductions and him getting kicked in the balls and him kind of going ham, that if he just pulls the trigger, just shows some aggression, just applies the boxing game that he has, the speed he has, the power he has, the hard-hitting nature that took him to a title, he could have taken the fight over. And then his corner had to say, no, calm. And it's like, Garbrandt doesn't have a gear that functions between passive losing, essentially, or in the case of the Trevin Jones fight, winning because Trevin Jones was even more passive, but passive and losing, and aggressive and winning, but being open and aggressive and like chances to get absolutely melted. It is so frustrating. Makes me really want to. It makes me wish, kind of, because I'm not a Garbrandt fan, but I do want to see fighters do the best they can do. I want to see him train with a proper boxing-centric gym and not Team Alpha Male and some sessions at Strong Style. I think that would be ideal. Cody Brundridge versus Dante Johnson was better than I thought it would be. And when I say that, I mean Brundridge actually showed up to kind of fight and like land a good jab and stuff and do okay things. I thought he lost all 3 rounds still. I found it really weird that people scored this fight for Brundridge. I can understand giving him the 3rd round. His jab was the most telling strike in that round. Johnson outlanded him, but nothing of tremendous significance. But my guy landed 6 strikes in round 1, 8 strikes in round 2. And it's not like Johnson didn't do work. He landed 29 and 28, respectively. 10 and 13 significant strikes to 5 and 6. I understand that Brunridge got on top of him for 3 minutes of the first round, but he did nothing with it. This is a damage-based score criteria. You can't get outlanded 5-1 and not drop a guy. I mean, I guess there's a world where you drop a guy or you really, really, really bust him up or whatever, where your 5 strikes meant so much that it can override it. You're Derek Lewis, basically. But that wasn't the case here. And I still think, as much as Brunridge outperformed what I thought he would do, I still think he's done. I just think that the brakes on Johnson need to be absolutely pumped. And I think I said that. I may not have. I can't recall. I believe I said that when I was breaking down the betting odds for that fight. It was like, I'm picking Johnson without a doubt, but I am not touching a minus 600 Dante Johnson. I'm not doing that. I can't do that. And we saw why. There's a very, very limited game there. There's very limited actual ability to apply his physicality. Like, he's a good enough athlete. Don't get me wrong. The power is there. The explosiveness is there. The speed is there. But you're a 5'8" middleweight who just does not really have functional technical skills. Like, it's Torres Finney with less technical skills. And that is very limiting. We'll see. He's 27. He's got time, but feels way too early. I was very, very wrong about Alberto Montez and Ricky Turcios. Montez looked good. Is that him being better than I thought he was, or is that Ricky Turcios being bad? I don't know. Turcios was able to land a lot of shots. But yeah, he basically just tried to get takedowns and failed. And then got, anaconda. So Montez does his thing, and maybe there is something really, really here. To his really low rent Ilia Topuria game. We'll see. Naim Jergal Tumdembarel versus Cody Durden. This was a fun scramble fight. This was, there for the grappling nerds like myself. And I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it was 2 guys getting back control and then losing back control over and over and over again. My notes literally have, I think, on 5 separate occasions, one of them getting the back, getting too high, and getting shaken off. So, both need work. Durden doesn't have the time. Maybe Tumdembarel does. He has the athletic basic needs. But, this win for him was a function of Durden not fighting well at all. And not looking at all confident. And not looking like he had any idea what to do with Tumdembarel, which is not a great sign. Sumudarji basically worked Jesus Aguilar. Not to an exceptional level, but I thought he won all 3 rounds. Went out there, did the thing, outlanded him, outranged him, outwrestled him. And at no point was Aguilar really getting anything going. But at the same time, Sumudarji didn't do a ton. He won a flyweight fight without landing more than 20 strikes in a round until the 3rd round, which is concerning. But, Aguilar was not able to really do much of anything. So he shut him down, and maybe that was just a function of that. DR Ngozi, he looked actually pretty good. I will say that he got hurt a couple of times, though, by Tobias. So there is concerns there, and he did make some weird choices on the ground. Almost got caught in a Sulab stretch. But his boxing looked good. He didn't get submitted. He went out there, got his win, and hopefully this is going to steamroll into something, because he is fun to watch. I just still have every single doubt that I came in with. I still doubt the chin. I still doubt the decision-making on the ground. I think it's just Tobias is not very good. And I knew that coming in. I knew, if you recall from the podcast, I said the same thing about Tobias and Fernandez, basically, where I said, I don't think either of these guys are particularly good. And I ended up picking Tobias to win. I ended up picking against Fernandez. I should have picked against them both. But the core was that I was worried about the fundamental decision-making and durability of Negociat. And Tobias couldn't get a finish, and therefore he lost. And Rodolfo Bellato knocked Luke Fernandez into next week. And this was disturbing because Luke Fernandez kind of just turtled when he got hurt. So it's one, you got hurt you got hurt and knocked down by like the first really good shot in the UFC you took, and your reaction to that situation was to turtle, and you're not that young. Because keep in mind, Luke Fernandez is 30 years old. His time and his ability to improve is going to be pretty limited. I mean, it's 205, so he's got a couple years left anyways, because it's 205. You can have that career that goes even kind of close to headbutting 40. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, am I very much convinced that Fernandez is very much a gym bully. And I came in thinking that because I remember watching his fight with for the CFFC title against shite. I'm forgetting his name. It was the fight that went to decision. Just go look at his record. Damn it. But I remember watching that fight and watching whenever he got pushed back. He didn't really have solutions, and he didn't really seem to be enjoying himself in any real shape or form. And that this fight, I think, just confirmed all of my worst thoughts about what that means. And that means that he's not really getting pushed back in the gym. He's not really training for a UFC fight. He's training for regional can crushing because there's no one in his gym capable of extending him and making him work all that hard, which is not super surprising because he's training out of Dante Rivera's BJJ, and the best fighter they have put out there is Phil Caracappa. Oh, Eric Nolan's there as well. Okay, but like they're too small. I don't know. I don't even know who his main training partner would be here. Who's got a decent record out of that gym? The answer is nobody. The guys I don't know are a dude who's 9-9, a dude who is 6-1. Nick Galante. How big are you? You're a middleweight. You might be the best he's got there. 6-6. Andrew Salas. Efren Escareno. 5-3. 4-1 kid who looks too small. Yeah, you're a flyweight. And I know Tapology's roster is not complete by any means, shape, or form. But I'm not seeing anyone here. He needs to go to a place where he will face guys who are going to make him fight hard in the gym day after day after day and not just get shoved around by him. That's the answer here. So that's about all I have to say about that. I went on way too long about Luke Fernandez. All right, UFC Apex number whatever. UFC Apex, Las Vegas, Nevada, and we are doing Josh Emmett versus Kevin Vallejos in the main event. I don't like the main event. I also don't like the fact that in addition to the main event being old guy versus up and comer, you've got Lemos on this card as well, Andre Fili, you've got Chris Curtis to a certain degree. All of the and you have the worst middleweight fight possible also on this card. Keep that in mind. And it's kind of a recurring theme of like old guy being put out to pasture. Don't get me wrong, Andre Fili versus Jose Delgado. Very excited for that fight. Lemos and Robertson. Not even bad. Not even a bad fight. Vallejos Emmett, not bad either. But not a main event. And repetitive theme kind of brings this card down. Quick talk about the betting. I'm going to be talking about betting. I'm going to be talking about advice you can use for betting. I'm going to be talking about betting odds. I'm going to be talking about my betting. But keep in mind that UFC, MMA I should say, is a highly chaotic sport that is fundamentally, hard to predict. Do not bet what you cannot afford to lose. Bet responsibly. Don't come crying to me if you lose your house. Let's go. Josh Emmett versus Kevin Vallejos is the main event, and I have to pick Kevin Vallejos just because You have a 40-year-old Josh Emmett in this fight, and he has not looked particularly good lately. However, the betting odds here are plus 390 to plus 430 on Emmett, minus 549 to minus 600 on Vallejos, is a little bit troubling because Kevin Vallejos does not have a game that has historically worked against Josh Emmett all that well. He is a pocket puncher, essentially, similar to Dan Ige, similar to Calvin Kattar, who did have some success but is a longer, taller guy, similar to Shane Burgos, similar to Michael Johnson, similar to Ricardo Ramos, and so on. These are guys that Emmett beat. Now, again, Emmett has not looked good lately, but what about Lerone Murphy's game is Kevin Vallejos going to do? What about Yusuf Zalal's game is Kevin Vallejos going to do? What about Ilia Toporia's game? Maybe Toporia's game, but Topuria is also Ilia Topuria. What about Yair Rodriguez's game is he going to do? The answer to all of these, again, except for Topuria, is basically nothing, because Vallejos does not have an outside striking game. Vallejos does not have a particularly effective wrestling game. He likes to get in the pocket, be creative, throw combinations, use his speed, use his power to catch people. And Emmett's still got a chin, and Emmett's still got power, and Emmett's still very explosive. Don't get me wrong. Again, I'm picking Vallejos, but the gap here is, to me, kind of insane. You got to pick Vallejos on an age difference of, 17 years? Basically a high school junior? Yeah, I do have to go with Vallejos. But I'm just saying, nothing about his game avoids the danger of Josh Emmett. He wants to be in Josh Emmett's range. He's not Lerone Murphy. He's not fighting from the outside. He's not Yair Rodriguez, who's making him uncomfortable with kicks. And he's not Ilia Topuria. Maybe in game ideas he is, but he's not Ilia Topuria. Doesn't have the feel of the range to abuse Josh Emmett's issues. And dude did go to the distance with Danny Silva 7 months ago. So pump the brakes a little bit here. So I gotta take him. I'll take him by TKO, but I'm nervous. I'm nervous about that one. Amanda Lemos versus Jillian Robertson. Taking Jillian Robertson here. Again, a favorite here at minus 188 to minus 210. Plus 150 to plus 165 on Lemos. There is a fear here that Robertson's gonna clench up with Lemos. Will trying to take her down and just have no luck with it because Lemos is a strong freak fighter. It's the hallmark of her game has always been a combination of her literal strength in the clinch and her power. And Robertson is a bad striker. I talked about Kevin Vallejos not avoiding any of the danger of Josh Emmett's game. Robertson's not really going to avoid Lemos' danger because she's going to come into range of Lemos. She's going to be there to be hit, and she's going to try to take her down, which has been hard to do. Even Tatiana Suarez had a significantly hard time getting the takedowns on Amanda Lemos. She went 3 for 12. Now, when she got it down, and this is the reason I'm picking her, Lemos had nothing. Once on her back, it was not good. It was a single submission attempt, basically, and that was it. And a brief reversal in the third round. Yeah, I'll take Robertson to be the younger fighter, the higher-paced fighter, the one who's bringing it, and the fact that at some point at 38 years old, Lemos has to slow down. I'm just saying that there's a lot of danger in this matchup, similar to the main event with Josh Emmett versus Kevin Vallejos, where the old dog is absolutely going to get the opportunity to do what they do. And that is all there is to it. That's how that's going to work. Now, it appears this card was shuffled around from the moment of my notes here, so just give me a moment here to amend my card, because Andre Fili versus Jose Delgado has been moved up. I had Omar Sy versus Ion Cutelaba in the third last fight of the night role. So Andre Fili versus Jose Delgado, I am actually excited for this one. Again, it has the problem of the old guy, 35-year-old Andre Fili versus 27-year-old Jose Delgado, being used to build up a youngster. Again, I have no problem with this. It's just that doing it 3 times in a row is a bit much. It's just repetitive. I'm going to have to go with Delgado, who's kind of like a Carlos Condit 2.0 at this point. I legitimately did not think this guy would work out too well. He showed up in the UFC and I'm like, this guy is playing this hyper violent game and I love it. I love what he's doing. It's creative, it's aggressive, it's fun. But I was like, I don't really think he's fast enough. I don't really think he's powerful enough. I think this is going to come back to be a bit of a problem for him. And he knocked out Connor Matthews. Who cares? And then he knocked out Hyder Emil, and I was like, I'm taking notice. And then he had a really, really solid fight with Nathaniel Wood that I picked against him in, and he did lose, but he went out there and he competed hard with him for 15 minutes and did his thing. So I was left with the distinct impression of this guy's got something, and now we have him against Andre Fili. Again, Delgado is a crazy dude who apparently lives in the MMA lab at all times, which is a very good gym. And he's aggressive, and he's going to throw volume, and he's going to throw creativity, and he's going to throw spinning shit, and he's going to throw things with power. Despite the fact that I still am left with the feeling that he's not necessarily that great of an athlete. But then again, I always thought Carlos Condit wasn't necessarily that great of an athlete either. He made up with it for craziness, essentially. Fili is getting a little bit older. He's still fundamentally the same functional fighter I think he was. It's just that I think that his chin is a little bit more crackable. I think his ability to get caught is a little bit higher, and that's both on the ground and on the feet. He's still winning fights. Christian Rodriguez, Cub Swanson, Lucas Almeida, Bill Algeo, but losing to Nathaniel Wood, losing to Dan Ige by getting bombed on, and then losing to Miguel Costa by guillotine choke. These are good fighters, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of showing up that people with dynamic, dangerous games are a problem for him. You have to go back to him beating Charles Jourdain back in 2020 to find a guy who is like inherently dynamic and violent and aggressive for him to have a win against. Because otherwise it's, like I said, Christian Rodriguez, who falls apart against any veteran, Cub Swanson, who's an old man, Lucas Almeida, it's not very good, Bill Algeo, kind of done. Like I remember thinking that Algeo looked off in that fight, and then his fights after that were, well, he did have a win over TJ Brown. Who cares? And Alexander Hernandez. But his Kyle Nelson fight and then his Duho Choi fight were not very good. So I do generally think that Fili's a little bit past it. But he's got the wrestling to take down Delgado, probably. He's also got good, solid boxing. He's one of the few guys at Alpha Male that like picked up a decent boxing game, a decent jab, decent follow-up. And I'll be really, really interested to see what he can do to challenge Delgado here. But I'm picking Delgado by TKO. I do think he's too wide of a favorite, which is a thing on this card. The betting odds on this card are a little bit insane. Minus 333 to minus 440. Fili is plus 250 to plus 340. I will be betting on Fili at those underdog odds. I'm not going to touch the Emmett odds. Well, I might. I might put a small bet on Emmett, and I will definitely be putting a bet on Lemos and Fili. But I am picking the betting favorites, the younger fighters, all that jazz. So apparently Omar C got bumped down another spot on the card because per Tapology, the next fight up is a fight I had lower down. Marwan Rahiki versus Harry Hardwick. Harry Hardwick is my kind of guy. He's got a basic game that builds on itself really well. It's fundamental. It's well schooled. And he's an underwhelming athlete. His UFC debut against Cowie Fernandez was truly bad. And I know it was up a weight class. I know it was also a short notice fight. But Fernandez is just not actually that good. And it really, really highlighted the problems that Hardwick's going to have going forward. And basically Rahiki is the opposite, where I like Hardwick's game a lot. I don't like Rahiki's game at all. The defense is terrible. Dude got dropped twice in his Contender Series fight. And only his opponent gassing out was really what saved him. That and the fact that he is down to scrap and he is athletically gifted. He is a guy who does land with speed, with power, and with reasonably good precision. He also has a decent feel for range. But again, the defense is the problem. He doesn't stay at his range and not get hit. Also, Hardwick's got the same height and a similar reach, so there's unlikely to be able to be safe. So basically what I'm saying is that Rahiki's going to get knocked out horrendously at some point in the UFC, unless he changes his strategy. However, I doubt that Hardwick has the prerequisite power explosiveness and speed to do that. He has the technique. He has the accuracy. He has the idea. I have no doubt that he will hurt Rahiki. I just don't think he'll finish him. And I think Rahiki will finish him eventually. The speed, the power, and his own fight-ending abilities will catch up with him. That being said, I again do think the odds are wide. Rahiki is a minus 265 to minus 280 favorite. Hardwick plus 200 to plus 230. I'll probably put a small bet on Harry Hardwick, even though I do think that the UFC is going to be a very, very rough place for him. Omar C versus Ion Cutelaba. C by submission. C is not exciting. I'll put it that way. But he has the physical stats, 6'4", 83-inch reach. He has the speed, the strength, the decent technical ability to be like a very good fighter at 205. He doesn't mentally melt down. And that is almost a requirement for an Ion Cutelaba win. Cutelaba comes out aggressive. He comes out throwing heat. It's intimidating. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's speed, there's power there, there's strength there. There's all kinds of things there. But eventually he'll just kind of combust on his own. And when you look at the guys he has beaten, Ibo Aslam, very deficient as a grappler and a wrestler. Ivan Erslan, a fight that was bizarrely close, and I don't think I'm ever going to pick Erslan to win a fight in the UFC. Tanner Boser, not a good enough athlete. Devin Clark, not a good enough athlete. Khalil Roundtree back in 2019. Serious problems with wrestling at that time. Ante Gulov, not a good enough athlete. Enrique da Silva, not a good enough athlete. Jonathan Wilson, good enough athlete, but very, very raw fighter. Kind of a disappointment, actually. He came up through the Explode series and was really just kind of can crushing. And when he got to the UFC, things didn't work out. In fact, I'm literally finding talking about Jonathan Wilson more interesting than talking about this fight. I am not kidding you when I say that the thinking about what Jonathan Wilson could have been if he had a better training session, and instead of getting to the UFC losing to Luis Enrique Silva, Ion Cutelaba, and Oscar Petroda, is more interesting than this fight. Yeah, it's a two true outcome fight. Like, Cutelaba is going to come out, he's going to be very, very aggressive, and if C collapses and he loses. But I think he will absorb it. I think he will keep going, and I think at some point he'll sub him. He is a tall black man, and I'm saying this purely for comedic purposes, although the tall athletic part is applicable. The track record of Cutelaba against tall black men is quite bad. It's losing to Ryan Spawn, losing to Johnny Walker, losing to Kennedy Nzechukwu. And again, I don't think the skin tone really actually matters, but tall, athletic dudes who don't just instantly fold, which is saying something because Johnny Walker and Ryan Spawn are both 100% capable of folding, were able to submit him in the first round. So, and in Nzechukwu's case, he knocked him out. So I'm going to go with Omar C by submission, probably in the second round. He's a minus 225 to minus 278 favorite, plus 175 to plus 210 on Cutelaba. Those are the first odds I think actually make perfect sense. So there you go. Vitor Petrino versus Steven Asplin. Going with Vitor Petrino here. It's just an athlete pick. Asplin is... Oh, hang on. Is that fight not happening? Oh, it got dropped down a couple spots. So they've restructured this card quite a bit. So I'm going to have to go back up the card and then back down. Yeah, it's just an athlete pick. I like Asplin. I really do. I am a fat guy. So anytime I see a dude losing a lot of weight and getting to the UFC, that's cool. I'm going to be there for it. Asplin's also just really, really fun. Like, he's aggressive and he throws punches and bunches. And he goes out there and he shows you the dog. It's just, I don't fundamentally think he has the athletic ability to get very far. And Petrino, as much as I think the move to heavyweight is still a bad idea, I don't think it really fixes anything. He's got to fix he still hasn't fixed his cardio. It's not like the cardio issue was caused by a weight cut. Dude does hit hard. He is fast. He is strong. He is a quality offensive wrestler and offensive striker. The defense is questionable on both of those things, but I just suspect he'll hit Asplin really, 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 really hard at some point, and then either drop him and sub him, so the old club and sub, or TKO him. So I'm going to go with the club and sub probably is the option. Vitor Petrino, he is the favorite at minus 240 to minus 265, plus 190 to plus 205 on Asplin. Perfectly makes sense. And we move on back up the card to a fight that I really am looking forward to. Bruno Silva versus Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson finally getting a break from facing off with the up-and-comers of the division. His last couple of fights. Well, okay, he had the Alex Perez fight. But Lodi Kavanaugh, Ramazan Temirov, Sumudarji, Joshua Van. It's a bit rough. Out there. I'm going to pick Charles Oliveira to win by decision here. Bruno Silva is super fun. He is violent. He is powerful. He has good submissions. Opportunistic fighter. Good fight ender. But Johnson is taller by 5 inches. He is longer by 4 inches. I think he just has a better round winning style of striking. And I think he can say safe enough. Now, that knockout loss to Alex Perez is concerning because I didn't see it coming. I didn't think Alex Perez was going to drop him twice and basically send him to the dustbin. So is Johnson, who is 35 years old, having some chin issues? Maybe. But he didn't get significantly hurt by Lodi Kavanaugh. He didn't get significantly hurt by Temirov. He didn't get significantly hurt by Sumudarji. So his chin is not incrackable. But Bruno Silva tends to really kind of crack dudes who are not especially good. Like, who's the best guy Silva's actually finished here? Cody Durden's probably the one that's achieved the most. Tyson Nam is probably the one that means the most, would be my guess. And maybe Hung Sung Park. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Johnson to... Well, and the other surprising thing is that one of the big weaknesses of Johnson's game is that he doesn't always necessarily fight at the pace that he needs. But Bruno Silva is busy in bursts, but not necessarily a great volume or pressure guy. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Charles Johnson. Looking forward to this fight. It's a fun time. Not really looking forward to the next fight. Yeah, Silva is the underdog at plus 144 to plus 150, minus 175 to minus 188 on Johnson. That makes perfect sense. And I do not question those odds. Next up, another fight that has been moved up the card by the looks of it. Chris Curtis versus Miktabik Oralbai. Listen, I know that I look very, very silly for picking Jack Hermansson against Oralbai. But I think I also did call it that Hermansson, if he looked like absolute dog shit on the scales, was going to lose. And he looked like dog shit on the scales, and he did, in fact, lose. I still have the same problems with Oralbai coming forward. And, ironically, they've given him another former middleweight here. I just don't think that for his game, which is based on pressure, wrestling, takedowns, control, strength, these are all things that are really, really helped out by size. And I really do think that he is long-term a little bit too limited in the size department for 170. And Chris Curtis has historically been fairly difficult to take down. His problem is not his takedown defense. His problem is his pace and his ability to handle outside striking and his ability to handle taller opponents. Not necessarily because of taller, but just obviously if you're taller and you're longer, you're able to utilize your reach and so on. Curtis will be the longer fighter in this particular fight. And as a result, kind of stuck going with Chris Curtis by decision here. Oralbai is tough. I don't expect him to get... I foresee the day that I will pick Oralbai at some point, but it's gonna require someone who I just think he can bully in the clinch and out-wrestle. I don't think this is it. I really don't. It doesn't have the chin factor that Hermansson does, because we've seen Chris Curtis make 170, like, it's perfectly fine. 5'10". Should have been here the whole time, frankly. So, yeah. Who's the favorite in that one again? Yeah, I'm running the dog here. Curtis is plus 240 to plus 265, minus 315 to minus 340 on Oralbai. I understand the odds, I guess, but you know what? I'm going to take that back. I don't think I understand those odds. I think they're too wide. I could understand Oralbai being the favorite. He is 4-1 in the UFC. He's done very well, but Chris Curtis is coming off a win over Max Griffin. And like his losses to Roman Kopylov and Brendan Allen are aging well, if anything. And his win over Joaquin Buckley is aging pretty well. So, yeah. So let's put some respect on Chris Curtis's name here. I know he's getting old. He's 38 years old, but I'm still going to ride with the old man here. Speaking of old men, Brad Tavares, Eric Anders. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I am picking the underdog by decision. There you go. Right now, that's Anders at minus 107 to plus 110, minus 106 to minus 138 on Tavares. These two guys' second most recent win is both Chris Weidman. It's enough said. They're both done. They both should be being fed to youngsters, to not necessarily on this card, because again, that's being done so much on this card, but they should be being fed to youngsters, and it's probably going to end up in the clinch because Anders is going to like soldier in there. Tavares doesn't really deny the clinch, but he's hard to take down, hard to, out clinch, but like it's probably just going to get stuck there over and over and over and over again and not be a very good fight. It is bad matchmaking. If this fight is entertaining, it is in spite of the matchmaking. Anyways. I'll leave it at that. Then we have two fights that I'm going to kind of break down together, which I'm just going to call the Souza fights, because we've got two debuters, not spelt the same, but we have Manuel Souza and we have Hesher Souza. So bear with me a moment here. I am picking against both Souzas because they are fighting guys who I've seen win in the UFC in Vallejos and Luan Lacerda. I think that both of them coming off the Contender Series, I have a lot of problems trusting. Manuel Souza does not seem that good. He has the physical aspects you would want. He has the I'm going to hit you really hard, be very explosive, and when he gets to dictate the grappling, he's very impressive. He's also a guy who can be out-wrestled, and a guy who relies a lot on the fact that he is a good athlete. And Blazioki has problems, lots of problems. Having close fights with Timothy Kwamba and Michael Aswell in the UFC is not good. But he is a good athlete. He is a stupidly built fighter because he's built like a me. He's built with a lot of things that are like, hey, you know what would be cool? This. Does it fit into the rest of your game? No. But I think you actually have to be good to beat Oki. Like, the guys who have beaten Oki are, like, legitimately solid fighters. They're Chris Duncan and they're Mason Jones. Those are good fighters. I understand that his best win is Michael Aswell Jr., but still, I'm left just going like Oki is a good athlete, and we've seen him fight guys in the UFC at the UFC level and actually win. I've not seen that at Manuel Souza. The guy he fought on the Contender Series kind of had a lot of success against him. Now, granted, with a wrestling game that Oki's not going to use, but I don't know. I'm not wowed by him, and I think I'm also like just being contrarian because Oki's plus 210 to plus 240. And Souza's is minus 260 to minus 310. I don't have that kind of faith in Souza. I do not. I think if he was the underdog, I'd probably pick him because I think this is a fight where I would just pick the underdog, honestly, because I don't trust either fighter. But I got to go with Oki. I've seen him win at this level. And then Lacerda and Hesher Souza. It's a similar deal. Hesher Souza is built better, I think. He's a good little pressure boxer wrestler kind of guy. Like he's legitimately quick, legitimately explosive, and legitimately has a really, really good feel for range and pressure. And while his wrestling is not especially good, he tries different things. He changes things well, and I appreciate that. I am hoping he wins, but I am picking Luan Lacerda because Lacerda is the underdog. Lacerda is plus 175 to plus 205. Minus 225 to minus 250. Lacerda has been better than I expected to be. When he came to the UFC, I'm like, this is a guy who is a random sub-hunter and a guy who doesn't wrestle very well. Turns out the wrestling part, actually not terrible. He stopped Damon Blackshear and actually out-wrestled him at points. He stopped Cody Stamann from taking him down. I'm not going to talk about the Simon Oliveira fight because Simon Oliveira doesn't matter. Simon Oliveira, perhaps the worst bantamweight the UFC has ever signed. Did Simon Oliveira beat someone in the UFC and I'm just blanking on it? No, he is not. He won his Contender Series fight that he lost to Tony Gravely. He lost to Daniel Marcos. He lost to David Martinez. And he lost to Lauren Lacerda. Okay. Lacerda is a good grappler. He is a talented grappler. He is not a bad boxer, honestly. He's actually got a pretty good feel for like a Muay Thai style striking game. And like I said, he's actually hard to try to out-train, wrestle, and control. So Souza will get the ability to come into range and wrestle him and box with him. He's not going to be denied his game. I just think the problem for me is that when I look at Hesher Souza's record, they're guys who cannot honestly stop his game at all, and that's who he beats. And sometimes he doesn't even beat them with a finish. So I hope to be wrong. Cross my fingers, cross my toes, because Lacerda is not. Lacerda is like cannon fodder. He's card filler. There's nothing more. There might be something more in Hesher Souza. There might be. I like the game he's trying to put together. I just don't like him at minus 225 to minus 250 in his UFC debut on short notice. This was supposed to be Lacerda versus Randy Nakamura, which I would have picked Nakamura in. Plus 175 to plus 205 on Lacerda. Bia Mesquita versus Montse Rendon, not Montserrat. Montse now? Anyways, don't know what the name change is about. This is not a bad fight for 135 because the division is an absolute wasteland where the best hope is like Jocelyn Edwards and Jacqueline Cavalcanti, which is not good. But it's a really, really simple variables and I can't really complicate it here. They both require grappling dominance. Mesquita is the better grappler. Rendon is very, very strong. Very, very hard to move in the clinch. But I'm going to go Mesquita by submission. I do think that Bet Rivers is insane because Bet Rivers has this at plus 900 for Rendon and minus 1667 on Mesquita, which makes the betting odd range here minus 649 to minus 1667 on Mesquita, plus 440 to plus 900 on Rendon. Don't get me wrong, this should be wide. I guess I know what a Rendon win looks like. It's her winning the clinch and I guess outstriking Mesquita. I'm not even convinced she can outstrike Mesquita though. That's the additional problem. But it should not be minus four figures. So Bet Rivers, if you can get the Bet Rivers line on Rendon, take it. Because plus 900 is nuts. Elijah Smith versus Su Young Yu. I'm taking Elijah Smith. It's a pure physicality pick. Su Young Yu is fine. He is reasonably well-rounded, and he will beat guys who are not very good or not very athletic. And that is kind of about it. And that's why he beat Long Zhao to become the road to the UFC guy. Oh, no, pardon me. He beat someone else for that, and then he beat AJ Cunningham, who is bad, both as a fighter and as a person, because he's a Nazi. And Lao Zhang, who is not very good. Not very good. Despite the fact that he probably should have beaten Cody Garbrandt. He's fine. He's a decently well-rounded guy. And then Elijah Smith is a second-generation fighter. He's the son of Gilbert Smith. He's not developed as much as I would have liked, but he went out there and he beat Vince Morales, who is scrappy and probably better technically than Su Young Yu. And at 23 years old, I'm hoping to see him improve. He's got the athletic gifts to it. He's got a reasonably well-rounded game. He is an MMA native. And I don't know about his gym. I don't know about the quality of the training, honestly, because his two fights are a slam knockout of Toshio Kazama. And Kazama's a meme. And then the decisions over Vince Morales and Aaron Tao on the Contender Series. And the Morales fight was very close. And given that Morales' run in the UFC has been not good. Not good. Vince Morales is now officially a fighter in the UFC who is 3-8. And his losses are not to bad fighters, don't get me wrong. Probably the worst of the bunch is Domingo Pilarte on Contender Series, but yeah, it's just not a great sign. We'll see. I guess Morales did give like Raul Rosas Jr. a pretty decent fight, so maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh. But yeah, I'm going to pick Elijah Smith because he's got the athleticism, he's got the wrestling, he's got the well-rounded nature of the game, and I just don't really trust Young Yu to beat guys who are reasonably well-constructed, don't have an obvious gap in their game, and reasonably athletic and physical. So that's the pick. Like I said, it kind of really just kind of comes down to physicality. Minus 200 to minus 240 on Smith, plus 163 to plus 200 on Yu. I think it goes the distance. And then speaking of fights that I'm picking really just on physicality, Pierre Rodriguez versus Sam Hughes. I like Sam Hughes. I mean, cheering for her basically all the time, but she's at the low end of physicality even for UFC strawweight, and she has to out-hustle, outwork, and just hopefully tire opponents out to actually beat them. Her UFC run and wins all have either people with suspect gas tanks, Victoria Dudikova, which I do believe was also the Staff Cucci fight, Stephanie Luciano, similar kind of problem, and or people who have good cardio but are like really bad. Oh, the best cardio suspect one, Jacqueline Amarine, but have to have even lower athletic ability than her. Elise Reed, Shauna Van. And Piera Rodriguez is plenty physical. She was absolutely bullying Ariana Carnelossi before DQing herself for knocking her opponent out. She actually was having a pretty reasonable time with Jillian Robertson before just, well, her refusal to stop wrestling with Robertson got her in trouble and got beat. That's her only loss in the UFC. And then otherwise it's beating Kay Hansen. It's beating Sam Hughes, a fight that has already happened. This is, you know, I literally didn't even consider that this was a rematch because it seems like such a pointless rematch. How'd the first one go? So the first round, Hughes hung around pretty well, apparently, looks like. Second round, all Rodriguez. Third round, close. I suspect similar. I suspect a similar vibe. So Pierre Rodriguez by decision. Don't know why we're getting a rematch of this fight. It doesn't really make any sense. The only Pierre Rodriguez rematch that would make sense would be a fight with Ariane Carnelossi again, so we can see if she doesn't headbutt Carnelossi into getting herself disqualified. Anyways, Rodriguez by decision. She's a minus 157 to minus 175 favorite, plus 125 to plus 145. I literally didn't watch the fight between these two because I just assumed this was a fresh matchup. My bad. I gave the UFC matchmaking team far too much credit. I don't get it. Both of these girls should be like people you put newcomers against, basically, or people heading places. Because like Hughes is like, all right, let's see what you got against someone who just doesn't go away. Not necessarily the biggest firepower, not necessarily the most physical aspects, but like who is going to just keep going in there. And with Rodriguez, it's just like a physicality test. Like that's perfect. I don't know why you're bouncing them into each other. That doesn't make any sense to me. Anyways. In the description, you will find a link tree to my video gaming stuff, my Discord server where I do the MMA Fight Simulator, where apparently Brady Futrell on the server, shout out to Brady, has been really, really happy with the fact that his fighter keeps winning by head kick knockout. And it's brought life into his like interest again. His fighters seem kind of dead, but he's picked up on the fact that he does knock people out with head kicks, and he does like that. So there's that. There's my social medias. There's my video gaming stuff. I think I said that already. And there are other places that you can find this fine podcast. I will see you after the fights. And if it's a good card, it'll get its own recap pod. Probably not. It'll probably be in with the picks pod for the next event.